Hello, everyone. This is Professor Hill. This is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306, here at St. Philip's College. We're actually doing the Maymester version, a highly concentrated version of the class. And this is week number 1. Today is Wednesday, the 16th of May. So we're into our third day of the course, but also the day that we have our first assignment that's due tonight by 11:59 p.m., so just before midnight tonight. And I want you to go in and make a contribution to that discussion, to that think about it as kind of a mini essay. You want to make a good, detailed contribution to that conversation. I posted a model at the beginning of it. And then I want you to read through some of the other responses of your fellow classmates, and on at least 2 of those, I want you to respond to what they've said. So post your big contribution, then read through a couple of others and give short responses to at least 2 of those. So that's tonight, a little before midnight. But what I also want you to do is to have read the chapter 1 of our textbook before you do this. You can incorporate some of the concepts, some of the key terms that we're using into your response. You got to remember, the discussions, I don't necessarily, want you to just shoot something off the top of your head. I want you to think of it as an application of the course content to a particular case study. And so that involves taking some time, writing out a slow, good, intentional, comprehensive answer. And we'll be grading these as we go along. Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. So tonight, the first one, as I mentioned, it's a case study involving a tragic story. It ends badly. There's just no getting around it. It's the true story of Jenny Lake, as you can see from the course materials that are posted about it. But I want you to think about it in terms of the concepts. And in that regard, last night I posted a reflection about some of the initial key concepts that he talks about what is ethics, what's morality. He starts to look at different types of ethics, descriptive ethics, meta-ethics, applied ethics, normative ethics. These are the things that I outlined in my short video yesterday. And I said that today I would look at what he calls the kind of the elements of ethics. Here he's talking about, again, 4 concepts that are interrelated. And this is, again, right out of our book, Doing Ethics by Vaughn. And he says that if you're going to have a theory of ethics, if you're going to have a model that you use to make difficult ethical decisions, that concept, that model that you have, it should have some characteristics. It should be reasonable. And he starts off by talking about a little section called the preeminence of reason. And he says there that when attacking difficult ethical case studies or decisions in our lives, that we want to bring our whole selves to that decision-making process, but we want to give a privileged place, have the preeminent position go to reason. It needs to be a rational, logical approach. And he kind of compares and contrasts that with the emotional side that human beings have. And he's pretty down on emotions. I would not go as far as he does. His take is that you can't trust your emotions. They're subject to bias or cultural influences. They might lead you astray from the right answer. Now, I got to tell you, a couple things about that. Number one, that's based on an assumption that there's a right answer and it's your job just to think your way to it, which is the reason why we started off with the Jenny Lake case. That's a tough one. And I don't know many people, when faced with that particular issue, that say, oh no, there was one clear right answer and she either got it wrong or right. Now, listen, he's making a point, though, about emotions. Emotions can overwhelm us. There's a reason why, like with crimes in our criminal justice system, that we want to have detached professionals handling the cases because the families or the victims of crime have such an emotional response. It'd be tough to develop a system which would be fair and equitable to everybody going through it and to preserve the rights of the accused as well as the victims. So we do have to understand the role of emotions. I wouldn't go as far as he does, which is to say to completely cut them out of the decision making process. My advice to you is when making difficult ethical decisions, bring your whole self to it. We are complicated critters. We really are. We have psychological sides, emotional sides, we've got spiritual sides, physical sides. We have, and of course, reason. And I'm happy with what he calls this section, the preeminence of reason. I'll go with that. But not for me exclusively. I would say that you want to bring your whole self to it. Turning yourself into a computer or Dr. Spock on Star Trek or something, weaning out all these other aspects of your human nature. I don't, I disagree with that advice. But coming back to his larger point, he's trying to make 4 points about a system of ethics that you have. The next one is that it needs to be consistent in terms of a universal perspective. And all he means by that is look, if you think that cheating on a test at St. Philip's College is wrong, then it might make sense that down the street at San Antonio College or Northwest Vista College or St. Mary's University or Trinity or any place else, that it would also be wrong there as well. So if you're going to have a rule like cheating is wrong, it needs to be universally applied. And what that just means is a blanket, consistent application. We'll come back to that one and why that gets problematic. But their point is that, his point, Louis Vaughn's point, is that you want it to be consistent. And if cheating's wrong at St. Philip's, it needs to be wrong down the street at SAC. Okay. And just like that rule is kind of about universally applied rules, the next thing he talks about, the principle of impartiality, that really has to do with when you take a rule like cheating is wrong and you're applying it, you want to make sure again that you're doing that equally so that, there's kind of equal justice under the law or under the rules for everybody. And there's not any individual or any group which is getting privileged treatment. You want it to be impartial or impartially applied. And again, that makes sense. If I come into a classroom and say, look, here's your test. Don't forget cheating's wrong. You can't do it. Well, except for, you in the front. This one student can cheat. Go ahead and open your book up. I don't care. But that only applies to that one student, not anybody else. Well, I think you would be justly upset if that was the case. You'd be saying, well, hold on a second. Why does that person get to have their book and not everybody else? That's the thing about applying the rules impartially to everybody equally. Now, the last thing is not so much a distinctive element of a system, but it's more of a description when he talks about the dominance of moral norms. What he means here is that there's lots of different competing models and norms and sources of authority that we have in our lives. And what he's saying here is that, look, when we're talking about difficult ethical decision making, the moral norms often trump the other ones, meaning that it's like with our laws. There's a connection between the laws of a country and the basic values and beliefs, the kind of core customs of a people. And what he's saying is those things are really driving the rules, like the laws. So that when our values change, we change the laws to reflect our values. And that happens all the time. There's lots of examples of that. Not least of which is just recently, very rapidly, when you look at marriage equality. That changed dramatically in the last 25 years. And it went from Homosexual acts used to be illegal. Sodomy was against the law. To having those laws removed. It used to be illegal to be a homosexual in the military. Those laws were removed, and you were allowed to openly serve in the military. It's all the way to marriage and marriage equality. And the law used to be it had to be one man and one woman, and now they're like, look, if you're equal citizens under the law, you get to get married. And so it's a change in what people with their values and beliefs about the core principles. And so then they changed the laws to reflect that. Mark Twain said that very succinctly. He had 6 words on the subject. The famous writer Mark Twain. He said, "Look, law is sand, custom is rock. Law is sand, custom is rock." And his point was, it's the customs which are going to always be driving the laws. And that's what he's saying here as well in terms of the dominance of moral norms. The moral norms of a people are going to be the rock at the bottom of that. So that's that next section out of chapter 1 in our book, Doing Ethics by Louis Vaughn. I'll talk a little bit either later today or tomorrow about the last section, which is about the tie between morality, our beliefs about good and bad, and religion. He kind of ends chapter 1 with that. We'll turn in our assignments tonight. Just so you know, there are books at the library if you're having trouble getting the book. And also, I made a change. Some of the books are on reserve, meaning you can only read them there in the library for like up to 2 hours. I've also put over some books now that you can check out. So you can go into the library, check out our textbook for up to a week. So that, again, we're just trying to solve the shortage or the time constraints around getting your books. If you've gotten one already or if it's coming soon, great, that solves the problem. And of course, don't forget about the good Norton Publishing has put up a website. It's called the Study Space to support our textbook. And it has an outline, a breakdown of each chapter and some of the key concepts. So that might also be of support to you as we get into the beginning of our textbook and the beginning of this class. So if you have any other questions, you can contact me through Canvas. I'm happy to respond. Let me know what I can do to help, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow, Thursday. So take care. Good luck. Get those assignments in. I look forward to reading them. All right. Bye-bye.